having this new sound system. For those of us of a quiet voice, you will enjoy. This morning, and Rev Kev called me and asked me to do this. I almost copped out. I went Friday to get my annual Z-Pack, and so if I break down coughing, wait till I'm done, then we'll continue. But they said this topic is on love. I thought, sure, that's why he runs away, always the tough ones. But love, think about it for a moment. It's an often used, misunderstood, manipulated, used as a guilt club, expressed in genuine, unexplainable phrases, a word that keeps hallmark in other businesses, causes, and overflowing in business for floral dealers, especially on certain recognized days, as Easter and Mother's Day. Try to do a design for this church on Mother's Day and see what happens to your Puka book. The meaning of love has filled many books. Many a PhD thesis has been written. TV shows, movies, and plays. And some of the TV shows that Linda watches, I have to go in the other room and read some murder mystery. Jesus starts out just before his crucifixion that he has come to be called the Last Supper. This is the New Testament reading that you're not here today because I was informed you can only put so much in a bulletin. You only have so much time because an annual meeting is coming. I hope your annual meeting is short and you keep your report short. But Jesus said, the Last Supper, he said, I give you a new commandment. Love one another as I have loved you. If there is love among you, then all will know you are my disciples. And that is the essence of the gospel reading that we did not read today. It will be the basis of our message, though. It'll have a thread throughout. We will keep it in mind as we explore the story of Peter in the book of Acts and the ending of Revelations. When I read this sermon over after I'd written it and was typing it, I wondered who wrote this. Some guy on some kind of a new drug, or definitely out of it. So if it gets lost in the middle, don't worry about it. You can always talk to Rev Kev. He'll explain it to you in great detail. There are two ways of approaching these few verses that John would start with the vision of Peter. We'll start with the vision of Peter as he describes, or we could start with the vision recorded in Revelations, credited to an author by the name of John. Is widely accepted, we know all these things, we don't really know any of it, but we think we know all these things about the scripture and how it was written and who wrote it and when and why and where and all that. Sometimes that gets in our way. So today, don't worry about it. Is it widely accepted that the writer of John is not the author of Revelation who wrote the Gospel of John? Of course, that's a little bit later. He would have been an awfully old person. He had been through an awful lot more experience than when the book of John was written. For Revelations, is a message conveyed to us, at least open to our hearts. That day when you hear it, open our hearts for spirit of understanding. We live in times that are not a whole lot different in many ways from the present time or other times. When you look at history, it's almost like a repetition or repetitive. We like to think of our moment in history as unique. We are special. We are the only ones who've ever experienced pain and suffering and wrongdoing, and presidents, we don't know if we can like them or not. Or Congress, as the young people said on one of the TV shows, they interviewed all these young people, and they were going to change the world. And I thought, yeah. We used to think the same thing. But in some ways, there's a larger picture of things that is not. Suffering, wrong, diseases, struggles of life. These are the things that are not new. Power, failure, arrogance, inflated view of who we are as human beings is not new. The famous astrophysicist died recently, short before his death, made a great scientific statement, as all scientists make scientific statements, although if they asked the man on the street, he could have told him a long time ago, that's really true. But this famous made a great statement. He made his first proclamation of this astounding understanding and thought. He announced in great authority, there is no God. Then he died. We don't know what he found out, but I understand. I thought I heard a voice saying in my head, and maybe God said, there is no astrophysicist. So he may never know. You got to be careful with God, He gets a sense of humor sometimes that we might not find as funny. But I digress. I only say this in introduction to the psalmist. I hear louder and older I get, the louder the psalmist comes. One line. He said, I get older. The old adage, wisdom comes with age, is even more ridiculous statement than there is no God. The older I get, the more I realize the whole world has fallen apart. What I thought was perfectly great is no longer wonderful. It wasn't true to begin with. My father used to say, if you work hard, you'll always be successful. Baloney. If you work as hard as you want and still be a failure. The psalmist stated in one line, though, and says it all. He says, and I like the old King James Version, so pardon me for my age. He says in there, what is man that thou art mindful of him? But I'd like to translate that into the new vernacular of our age, the new inclusive language. When the psalmist says, God, who in the hell are you anyway to think anything of us human beings? Who do you think we are? Why do you care about us as human beings? Just look at us. We're a failure, we're a mess, we're a lousy group. And yet we have some, maybe, possible hope. Watch the nature shows. The elephants take care of each other. The chimpanzees take care of each other as long as it's their group. Otherwise they kill and eat each other. And remember, that's our closest relatives. The only difference is we don't eat each other as much anymore. But we will present you a message for your thought and consideration. I hope you will take these few moments to struggle with me and recognize that we stick stronger telescopes into space. Stronger telescopes that show us even more universes than we knew existed before. And we even get more excited. But one thing that bothers us the most is the world becomes smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. Oops, it's gone. That speck of dust, as I've said before, in the universe that molded. And why would God care about that one little tiny speck of dust with these little itty bitty insignificant creatures crawling around saying, I'm great, I'm wonderful, there is no God? Isn't it amazing? It is amazing. But we can't answer that question. All we know is that people's biggest fear is one day they'll find out with all this space exploration that we are the only creatures in this whole entire universe that exist. Wouldn't that be a lonely case? Not only lonely, we would be even more careful about destroying who we are and what is. But that's another sermon, and I'm sure Reverend Kevin will take that theme up later in the week. This brings us to the commandment of love one another as I have loved you. It amazes me, as I read history, amazes me how the troubles are the fruits of our forebears. We can blame them as they reap fruit from their forebears. The Old Testament says the sins of the fathers will be visited upon the son, and it is so true. We are in the midst of another crisis again with a quote-unquote Middle East and those areas that Britain once ran as a great empire and decided amongst themselves, we'll make this country, this country, this country, that country. I don't care how they relate to each other. I don't care what their religion is. I don't care who they are. They're going to be who they are as we say they're going to be who they are. And then there was the Tea Party, and Britain got thrown out of our country, but they managed to hang on to Canada. So at least we have a place we can run to. But think about the sins of those before us continue to cause the troubles that we have today and who we are. And those things continue to come in bombarding upon us, and we continue to wonder why and where and what is our history going to do for the future generations. And good thing I'll be gone and won't have to listen to them complain. But the Scriptures call us the possibility of the impossibility. The possibility of the impossibility of striving for love and justice in the world today. And so I choose to start with our Christmas readings with Revelations. You should read Revelation. If you haven't read it, it's a thrill far more than even Stephen King can come up with. And yet, underlying all of that imagery, all of that excitement, all of that wonder and hate and spiritual destruction and retribution and all the things that God's going to do and get all those people in one big pit and burn them all up just like you do your trash. That poor astrophysicist. But you read it as an underlying thought there. There's always that underlying thought that God is in control. God will win. Evil has no chance, and it cannot succeed. And there's days you wonder. You get up in the morning and you're still walking, and you wonder. But we talk about this as a great source of images for horror movies. It's a great source of images for those things. But what bothers me mostly about horror movies is they pick on insects more than anything else. It doesn't mention insects in Revelations. They're quite nice. They're wonderful little creatures. They've lived a lot longer than the rest of us. When we read the book of Revelation, that John sees a new heaven and a new earth. He sees the holy city, a new Jerusalem coming out of heaven from God. He hears a loud voice. And at last God has a dwelling place among men, and will wipe away every tear, and there will be an end to death, and no mourning, no pain or crying, and the old order has passed away. And I was just visiting with a lady in our group and our court where we live, and she was telling me she could hardly wait, and she looks up every morning to see the coming of Jesus, so she's ready to go. And I said, whoa, I'll tell you, no, not today. I got too many things I haven't seen yet. But that's where she gets revelations. She sees this, and that's all she sees is the end, and where she can use it to beat up on other people. But also, think about it for a moment. This is like the mottos of many a Christian denomination. We are the ones, and you are not. We are the ones, and you are not. We could go down the street and chant that, couldn't we? That's a great idea. Let's try it. As soon as church is over and the meeting's done. But this whole idea of no pain and no death and no mourning and no crying and no disease is a very deep dream deep in our hearts. It's a life without trouble, without pain, without sorrow, without any of those things that bother our lives. This is one place age becomes wisdom. We know that that day has not arrived and seems to continually to elude us. So we ask, what do we do with all this book? What do we do with Revelations anyway? Why is it even in there? We know that Jerusalem has been destroyed by the Romans 70 years after Jesus' death. The Jews revolted and they lost. The temple was again destroyed and is not this time as not to rise again. We know that the book was written after when the Roman emperors got a bright idea they were to be worshipped as God, that they were God, and anyone who worshipped otherwise faced death and persecution. Christians were under extreme pressure, and John wrote the 7 churches in Asia. This book has helped them understand and to have hope. Because it became a time almost of hopelessness. If you read carefully between the lines, it would seem that there was no hope. People were being fed to the lions and burned at stakes and burned rid of everywhere they existed. And those times, in our time, we passed through similar situations. But we find the book is written in apocalyptic form, as was not uncommon during Hebrew history. There's many apocryphal books running loose out there that every now and then someone discovers them and say, oh my God, I found this book that nobody's ever seen before. And it is so much more fantastic than those old books in the Old and New Testament. After all, what good are they? I've never read them, but they aren't any good anyway. This book is filled with excitement. It's filled with revenge. It's filled with extreme times of excitement of getting rid of the destructive ends, and underlying all this idea that God is in charge and evil will not win. But many will suffer, many will die, but God alone is the power and remains so. If you read Revelations, read it as is written. This is a vision of hope and encouragement couched in revenge and hatred, which we find a little strange. It reflects reality as it is. Evil seems to be in control. He who sits on the throne says, I am the Alpha, I am the Omega, I am the beginning and the end. In other words, I am it. I am all that is. Some get the message, and who disagree with our view of God and how people should behave, the Revelations is the answer to how all those others will be judged. They will be sent to the everlasting burning hell, and we likely feel we are the ones who are loved, and we are the ones who are loved, and others do not. So they will be punished. It's comforting to know that we're on top of the heap and the rest of them are below and being burned and gotten rid of And then we find comfort in all that abuse and all that sacrifice we made in life will be rewarded, recognized, and when the new age is ushered in, we will be lifted up and we'll be great. But remember, Jesus said, those who think you're good are not going to make it. But Revelations is not worried about that. But this is a trap. This is a trap that awaits us at every turn of when we try to be who we are. We, like Peter, have strong desires to do right, to care for all, to fight for justice, to do God's will. We border on law without variance. Sometimes we believe that love will conquer all and we will have to do is love and be nice. I watched my daughter teach kindergarten and I had the pleasure of helping her without having to do any of the discipline. I would never make it. Kindergartners are like the rest of us. They need some kind of constriction. They need some kind of order. They need some kind of thing that lets them go down a pathway without too much variance. Otherwise, all you have is kindergarten chaos. And that's not hard to get. But sometimes I believe that but I watched a student teacher come, and when she was learning, and you know, we make that same mistake when we're learning. We think if we just love enough, they'll all behave wonderful and be angels on wheels. Well, they're angels on wheels, all right, but I don't know what kind. The wheels fall off. But she will learn, she will gain, she was a good teacher, and she will be fantastic when she learns. You've got to have restrictions. You've got to take these little children who are just kids, barely out of their diapers. Ha! They're smarter than you think, and they know more, and they know how to manipulate you to the longest inch of their life. They know exactly what to do. They know which buttons to push, where to get you to go, and they can change the whole issue from A's to B's to Z to X without you even realizing it's been done. That's what you have to learn. So we're kind of like that, and actually, we find ourselves, when we believe that God will conquer all, and we have heard throughout the centuries of religious leaders that we can and should strive for perfection, realizing that we will fall short, but by the grace of God, we are still acceptable. The trap of thinking love will only accomplish our job, we forget that our best efforts of love, we bring a bit of us with us. We tend to expect others to be like us. We tend to let others see life as we see it. We act in love. Many times we cause greater hurt than we can imagine because we fail to see our own imperfections in our actions. It's a hard one to think about, so you talk to the Reverend over here. He can explain it later much better than I. Peter had a vision. He saw a great sheet, or some scriptures say a sailcloth, in that he was a fisherman, lowered down from heaven. Peter was hungry, and the sheet was filled with all kinds of critters that were forbidden by Jewish law to be eaten. And Peter was a righteous and pious man. He was a man who was told to eat, and he said no. He had never eaten forbidden food, and he wasn't about to start now to change. 3 times the voice from heaven said, eat. And 3 times he refused, and God lost his patience and yanked it back up into heaven and said, fine, don't eat it. Oh, that's not quite there. But God says, if I say it's edible, and you can add the explicatives. We may ask, why is this relevant in our time? Let us look back to the time that Peter lived and look at upon the Christian church was dealing with, and this new radical way of seeing and relating to God. As in the beginning of that scripture in Acts, it said, people heard that Peter was eating with Gentiles. Oh my God. Sometimes you have to find out what a Gentile is. If you talk to the guy I talked to at the General Conference of the Methodist Church, we got into discussion. He was by the evangelizing, rising up, going on Christians or whatever, and I was from the other side, thinking that we might think that gays, lesbians, transgendered, etc., normal people, and other kinds of abnormal people, because we're all normal, right? No, whatever. But I went over to him and I was polite. I said, what are you selling? Well, we're evangelizing Christians. We're Bible-believing Christians. I said, good, so am I. Now we're on the same page. Now, are you historical or are you literal? I don't know what you mean. Well, I said, if I committed adultery in the Bible, you would have to stone me. Well, that was good for that day. Oh, let that door go. And I said, well, now they know we have a problem. When Jesus walked out of the tomb, there were 7 denominations. Practically, probably only 2, but I like the word 7 because I am also one of those number people. And I said to him, okay, fine. You know, the problem today is, who is the 21st century Gentile? He said, I don't know what a Gentile is. So that's why I bring it up. I want you guys to go home and learn what a Gentile is so you understand the scripture when you read it. Needless to say, we didn't get anywhere in our discussion. But the church started by Paul, the church started by Peter, the church seated in Jerusalem, not started by Peter, was the James church. James was one of the disciples, and he felt that to be a Christian, you had to follow Jewish law, be circumcised, and become a Jewish Christian. Paul said, no, Gentiles can become Christians as they are. They need not be circumcised. The new law says no. These things have gone and we have a new day and a new way, and so you have this great discussion going on. And Peter, being Peter, remember, this is the guy that says, I'll never deny him 3 times later. I don't know him. You know that guy. The one that the church was founded on, the rock. Yeah, well, it's crumbling like granite does. You know that guy. Peter is and the guy that says, oh, I'll go with you wherever you go. And what does Jesus tell him? Get behind me, Satan. You know that Peter. Okay, we got him now. But he is trying. He's disturbed as he doesn't know which way to jump. He was eating with the Gentiles and some Jewish people came in and he immediately got up and ran over to another table. You remember that part too, huh? That's like me. Peter and I, we have so much in common, except he was smarter. But this division haunts us to this very day. This division of whether Gentiles are acceptable or not acceptable still haunts us. The whole question that we deal with here today and every week and every Sunday is the question that the churches are dealing with, even more undercover and some openly. Some churches hate openly, others hate secretly, but they say we don't. Huh? Doesn't that sound humanistic-like? Yes. It is. The division haunts us because we fall short of perfection. Then we reflect personal and sometimes arbitrary expectations for what we want the church to be. We are humbled when we realize it is not pure love that we have. It is not pure love that we practice. With our best intentions, we still fall short. We fail in the other half for the same reason. For our justice may be tainted by what we deem as fair and just for any other person. For it is noted that justice without love is like water without moisture. That's a good one. Try it sometime. You get dust. But justice and love are 2 things tied together. They're almost the same, but yet not the same. Because first place, we know what justice means, but we don't have a clue what love means. So let's just go ahead and think justice. Even in our best efforts we deem as love and justice, we will end up doing unloving actions. Without regard to the other person's experience or the view of life. We bring our perspective, what we think is the right way. This is the way it is, and no matter what you say, don't take it the other way. We need to stop, listen, determine. As I work in the kindergarten, you become fast aware that we're dealing with many cultures in the same classroom. We're dealing with nobody, there's not a single kid in that group from Wyoming where I was raised. They don't even act like Wyoming people. They act like those Montana people, though I had to deal with later. Because Wyoming, there's so few of us, we found perfection early on, and it just hasn't been discovered yet. But be first aware of our imperfections and lack of understanding, then we are on the road to love and justice for not only ourselves, but for others. For example, is our treatment of refugees. We stop them at the border. One day there's many, the next day there's few. Why? We say, who are you? Are you all drug peoples, pedophiles, sex deviants, crooks, liars, cheats? You're coming to a wonderful country where we love you with our full hearts and you'll be free, free, free. But Don't do this, this, and this, and don't come in. We're free. We're an example as we think about that, when that's one of our biggest issues today, where we bring our love and our justice, but we bring ourselves with us at the same time. We need to be humble to realize, who are you? Listen and learn and to know. And then I looked up and saw the new Jerusalem come to earth. The old has passed away, and the new age had come, and now God has a place to dwell among men. Amen.